Hello and welcome to Coming Into Being. I'm just going to adjust my hair here. Feels like I'm a little low on the Instagram side. That's a little bit better. Anyways, let me send off my little message and here we go. So, this is your time and space to just be. Take that time to be with yourself. So, with that, just take a nice Carolina jumping right in. Oh, Tiki, I remember your little avatar, so I know you've joined before. Good to see you. Um, so jumping right in. Yes, good. Time to be and take that moment, take that pause for ourselves into just us, just connecting in, just giving ourselves that space and that time in everything that's going on in our lives, in our world. So get yourself some water or a cup of tea if you'd like. And we'll get started. We've had some really good sessions lately. We always have good sessions, but sometimes they just feel like they're really good. So you always feel like saying that. It's like, well, gosh, they're also so unique and special, you know. So that's nice. So we never know what's going to come up, and we just show up and see what's up. So we'll see. Okay, everything's good on both sides here. So let's take a nice deep breath in. Hold it. Ed Asta's joining in just as we release that breath all the way out. See if you can just go all the way out. Letting the breath come back in. And that can be helpful just to kind of slow down. We get going on something, maybe get a little nervous because we're about to do something. I've done this for so long, and I'll be honest, it's like, I hope everything goes well. It's always that wanting to go well, and keep getting these messages all over the place. Sorry, getting distracted and messages popping up all over the place, and yeah, we just, things throw us off, and it's like, what's this? What's that? So really nice to give ourselves that space, yeah. So slowing that breath down and just taking that nice big deep breath, holding it for a little bit, and then just releasing. And letting ourselves float into our bodies, coming to that deeper space within ourselves. And that's opening up. If you can feel that shift that just started to happen on that second breath, where everything starts to slow down. The way to really slow down time is to really come into yourself and into the present moment even more. And the present moment, when we're really in that moment, it becomes this gateway to tap into the infinite. And Hannah, I will not know how to say your name, so I'll just say Henny. Welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. So just really starting in. But yeah, if you when you come into yourself, really connect in, and we connect in through our bodies is the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, we can have a tendency to just float off, and which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when that piece about really connecting fully on all levels with ourselves, we anchor it into the present moment. And so you do not need to request to view to be in the video, because that will actually pull you up on in front of everybody. So you're on fine, just to know, because I've done that before, and other people have too. When you start joining these lives, it's like, what do I do? And so you're fine. You've joined it. You're fine. So no worries. So let's take a deep breath into that. We are here. We are all present. Yeah. So coming into that, being present with ourselves and connecting in through the physical body, because we've come into the physical level. So however you identify yourself in terms of how you know yourself. You know, we all have very different ways of moving through life. And some of us are more tapped into the etheric, some are more tapped into the physical, some more in the emotional, you know, so whatever is prominent for you, you still have come into physical form because here you are on this video. Here I am speaking to you here in this physical body here. So it's that vehicle to really bring us into this space, this time, here, now. And that moment when we really come in, the more we come into that space and time and really connect in, again, with physical body, but also with whatever is present around us in the current moment. That's the gateway for that connection between the finite and the infinite, the timeless and the time bound. And here we have his sea power. Hello, thanks for joining. A new person. So thank you all for stopping by and coming in. Just this is our chill time. And if you're on YouTube, so that's Instagram that's popping up. But if you're on YouTube, you're welcome to say hello in the chat if you'd like. It's fun to see who's popping in. So coming into that juncture, into that present moment, let's take another deep breath into the now. Deep breath in, and then this time don't hold it, just exhale all the way out immediately, and just squeeze all the air out of yourself. So really kind of just pushing your belly in, squeezing everything in and letting that breath out, and then letting it come in and start back on its own. Yeah. Taking that moment to Sydney, hello. 2 big dogs again, yay. We like doggies, we like our animal friends. They feel like kind of lab-like dogs. Happy doggies, yeah. And letting yourself relax so we get to that juncture of that space opening up, and things kind of start to feel more quiet, more calm. There's kind of this space that opens up. You know, you start to feel like it's just kind of limitless. Your awareness can kind of shift. Hopefully all of you can pick this up, but it's just a question of practice a little bit and paying deeper attention. Part lab, part sulky. All right. And in that awareness of, so the space is opening up here. So just take a moment to be quiet and just feel into that. So you can have your awareness on your breath. And it's an interesting feeling. So I'll describe how it feels to me and see what you pick up on this for yourself. So it's like there was a moment when I was talking and all of a sudden it just started to really kick in and it's this sense, it's this kind of sensation, whether you feel it strongly or not, just this sensation of just kind of like expanding or getting quiet. You know, it's sort of like at dusk, you know, in the sunset, you've got all the little birdies that are singing, and then it just kind of goes quiet as the sun is setting. There's a moment just with the nightfall where it just kind of gets quiet before the night birdies start to sing. And there's just that calm, and it kind of feels like it just spreads out. So this is what's happening right now, coming through more and more strongly in the space. And when we give ourselves the time to really feel that, So I want to give you that opportunity right now to just feel into that. Have you, as you kind of put your awareness on that feeling of that quiet, you start to have the sense that it just goes forever. It just keeps going, kind of like floating in a tranquil body of water. Yeah. Oh, hi, Nancy. Thank you. Good to join in. Yeah. So that might be a really nice way to experience it. Yeah. And and everything just starts to relax. So let's just use that. Let's take this time to really come into that space of that infinite. But it's the juncture of the finite and the infinite, because we're in our bodies and the infinite is there too. So it's that coming together of the two. Letting yourself be aware of your breathing. If your mind needs something to do, or even just settling into the sensation of the body with the breath, and maybe focusing on your chest. Letting everything else except of the finite, except ourselves, our physical identity, our physical selves, be present here in this moment. And allowing yourself to breathe that in, feel like with every in-breath. And it's okay if they're shallow breaths or if they're deep breaths. No worries about, am I breathing correctly? That's for another kind of practice. But just like, even if it's a short breath, just like you're smelling a flower and taking that in. So yeah, so that phrase that came through, like you're smelling a flower. You don't go when you're smelling a flower, right? That's just a different practice. But you gently are connecting to the flower, and you just take a breath in and feel that fragrance from that flower. So same thing here. As we breathe in, I'll have to shift your breathing, just coming into that awareness of the breath coming in. And as you breathe in, you're breathing in the infinite more into yourself. And yeah. And so yeah, it can feel like you're in this pool of water, this very calm, serene pool of water. Or it can feel like you're floating in the stars also, for examples. And so giving ourselves the time, the space right now to feel into that, just follow that sensation more deeply. And just curiosity, what does it feel like? The fragrance of flowers, the fragrance of your life. Oh, very nice. Yeah. Yeah. The fragrance of the infinite. So yeah, very, very nice phrasing there. As you inhale, it's again coming back to the just when you take that smell of that flower, your awareness is on that flower. So that flower here right now for today is that infinite, the infinite and the timeless, the pure pure, infinite, and timeless. And smelling, as you come closer to it and inhaling that fragrance, just like your awareness is right there on that flower, whatever flower you want to, a rose or a camellia. We've got camellias in bloom here now, or some apple flower, apple blossom, cherry blossom, whatever it is. Even dandelion, you bring it and you smell it, and you're focusing on that delicate smell. So same thing here. As you inhale, just bringing that awareness to that delicate fragrance that's coming through of the infinite. And as we bring our awareness into that connection, through our awareness of feeling more deeply into the experience of this moment, of connecting into the infinite. Walk through a rose garden. Yeah, very nice. So that there's a lot of nature that comes through, isn't there? And that just what we're doing here, we don't need to do anything else. Just being present. There's all of a sudden there's this opening that happens to a lot more for us. So nature really coming through, the new earth really coming through. This joy in connecting with us, that we're paying attention here. It's always there. Just like, see who's going to be willing to step forward and just take that moment. Even freshly mowed lawn, yeah. Or a field of grass, a field of wild field that you're walking through, that yeah, it's there. It's that timeless. And as you become more aware, as we just take that time, we get fed, we get supported. It brings us back into alignment with ourselves more deeply. And what I'm noticing for myself is like I'm inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. It's almost like I just want to have the nose be that focus that takes me in deeper with each inhale, and exhaling out with the mouth to feel that even more, to just like, okay, let's just have that one part here just focused on that really brings it in. And you can feel the love that's there, of the love of existence for each of us. And it's even more than that. So when we say it that way, it's that sense of, we kind of create this external factor to us, simply because in this physical, that physical definition kind of reinforces that separation, right? That external and internal. So there's that, but it's really coming back to ourselves and that deeper connection to ourselves with that in that moment, feeling more deeply into that connection to self and expanding that understanding of self to bigger than the human identity. And even, I would say, even bigger than how the human level identifies spirit or soul identity, even multidimensional cells, even larger than that. So if we go deep enough, we can go to that place where it's the totality. And it's us, each of us. So the balance here for us is this physical identity is important to keep us anchored into the present moment, not go floating off, because that can just make us wonky, And yet at the same time, that experience of self as the infinite, that just kind of opens up things differently, doesn't it? But they're not separate. Again, it's that doorway, that line that we're standing on when we do this. Finite, infinite, and we're standing on that line. That line is the union of both. That's the only place they're in union. Otherwise, they become separate entities. And that's not a bad thing, and that's a very natural thing, actually, because there's different levels of density, there's different definitions of what makes something infinite and what makes something finite, infinite. To stay in that congruency of the right hand doing the finite and the left hand doing infinite. So allowing ourselves to stand on that line for a moment. And on that line, it's that coming into the totality of our beings, because we are open to all of our being. And we don't have to be there all the time. Let me shift that. It's there all the time. We don't have to be focused and conscious of it all the time. We need to come into that finite because, again, that's what we came here for. And we came here for bringing that piece of that infinite, but also that juncture, that line of finite and infinite into the physical experience. So this is what we're doing right now. Reinforcing that in the system, reminding that finite piece. Remember this part, because things can start looking really crazy, and probably all of you will say, they're looking totally insane out there in a lot of different ways. So coming to this place to remind ourselves, right, this is what it's really all about. This is what we're here for, to have this and be this. And it's good to bring ourselves back into that experience of this truth. Every so often, And that every so often could be every day. It could sometimes be every hour, just for a minute, for 1 minute. Because a minute can last kind of an infinity of time, yeah? Of taking that moment, closing your eyes if you need to, and feeling into this moment in space, remembering, coming back to, through that memory, coming back to, okay, yeah, remember that feeling. Tapping into that through the memory and allowing that to just, through that memory and that brain, and the brain just going, oh yeah, bringing it up and bringing it back to that experience and recreating it in that moment. Or, sometimes it's once a week, sometimes once a month. It's like we get off something and then something reminds us, smelling that flower. I think next time you smell a flower, you just might, oh yeah, remember we were talking about that. Yes, come into that moment again of finite, that line of finite, infinite coming together, lining up, boom. So changing that, it's almost like changing the definition of line, because we have a tendency to see a line like it's a divider. You take a pencil and draw a line on a piece of paper. It feels, kind of like divides the space. But instead, let's shift that. It's that bringing together of that finite and that infinite. They're on those two sides of that line, and that's where they overlap. They come in together and overlap. And feeling that smoothness, that softness, feeling that love. I understand that too. Today it's been a little difficult for some reason, woke up anxious. Yeah, and you're probably picking up on information that you're not aware of, like an energetic frequency, vibrational information. It depends on like what your system taps into, is tuned into. So one thing to do is when we feel that, you wake up and you're anxious, so let yourself just come into the breath, come into just that stillness, and that, kind of what we're experiencing now is that it's like silence, but stillness might be a better word, because it's just that calm, that quiet. And even, you mentally and physically just taking that moment, and it can be really fast. Sometimes you might need a little longer. And just coming into that stillness, not letting your mind go off somewhere else. And a little reminder, when we wake up in that place, it's like, whoa, it's like all over the place. And for whatever reason, it could be just personal stuff. It could be something out in the ethers that you're picking up on. The conversation the day before, the situation the day before that you're still processing through. And just come, it's like, no, focus on yourself. Focus on me. No, this is me. Become aware of your body. And kind of like hold still. Hold that mental part still. Hold the emotional reaction still. As long as you can. We'll get pulled out of it, and it's like, okay, yep, oops, no, okay, let's come into that stillness. Let's be in that stillness like we are right now. And in doing that, you might notice also if it's coming from inside this part of you, or maybe another part of you, or if it's floating around you and you're feeling it. There's a lot of things out there that will try to pull you out of that because they're being thrown off. It could be a person, it could be a lot of different things, but so something else is off balance, and wow, look, you're a lot calmer over there. Let me hook into this. Let me anchor into this person. This is, it's like a boat anchoring, and let me throw that anchor into that person because that'll hold me steady. And instead of like, nope, sorry, I'm not going to do that to myself. Yeah. And so by coming into that stillness of mind and just, you notice your emotions, but coming into being still, body, not moving physically. Whoa, yes. Yeah, that was a good imagery that came up right there. So Sydney, I have just been crying every time I take, this is a really good point, so I'm going to read this. I take silence and stillness for myself, okay? So wonder if it is me or someone else. At that point, it doesn't matter because you're holding on to it. Or it's come into your system, so that is now making it yourself. Now there's that aspect, but there's also this other piece that we get imprinted with our experiences, and your system will only take you through as much as you can handle in that moment that you're going through it. So this is a typical reaction that many, if not most, if not all people go into meditation, any kind of meditation. That's kind of the key as to why a lot of people have a hard time with meditation. They say, oh, I can't meditate. Every time I go to close my eyes, it's like, oh, this stuff starts coming up. Like, yep. And it needs to. So I have to pull back. So it needs to. So you don't pull away from that. You don't like, oh, stop meditating or pull yourself into physical reality. It's like, oh, okay. It's just going to come through. And so by letting it come through, it's in that place of holding yourself in that stillness, and yet you're also feeling that that expression come through. So the stillness is going to really, like, if your body, you're just in that, you're not just throwing it all over the place. That's another way of doing it. But and just, if you need to pull out for a minute, open your eyes, focus on the physical sort of environment, take a deep breath, and then let that come through. But so it can be either one, and in the moment is the only time you can really say if it's either one. I tune into you, it's like you definitely, and it can also be both of those coming at the same time, or interweaving. One time you go in silence, and it's really about that deep crying that you have not let out for yourself. And other times it's like you're picking up that information from you've let yourself get imprinted by somebody else's information, and it's releasing. All right, let me read the rest of your comments. Not being seen is coming up for me big time. So in fear of being seen. Yeah, right. So you're probably not being seen because that fear of being seen, and so letting yourself feel into that feeling, and how that relates to me being able to generate money. That's a small portion of it. That's a part of it, but not the only thing. And why have I signed myself up for this program? Yeah, really. And so that's a good question to ask, especially when what The money piece, I tell you, and the money piece is not that simple. It's really not. It's the money piece. I mean, there's so many things out there that people will put out about money, and it's not that they're not true, but it can be a lot more complex than just one thing. One thing has never worked for me with the money thing. The one thing that has worked, the one thing I could say that it has absolutely worked, it's about lining up, coming into my physical, my alignment with myself and removing what is not me. But that there's a lot of stuff there. I couldn't bring up a lot of stuff. I get that Sydney just had a conversation about it. Yeah. Especially when you know better. Well, here's the thing. We got to be careful with that. Yes, we know better. We got to be real gentle with that piece, because that know better is that it's like when we know better, but the problem is we're knowing intellectually. We're not knowing with our whole being. So the head, the intellectual understanding is there. That's just the first step. The real work starts to when you embody that, when you are in that place of being that. So remember that. Knowing, it's like, okay, because it's only coming from the head. Yeah, you know better, but the reason you're not doing better is because you're not being the better. So it's be, know, do. It's in that order. I have my first ever virtual panel tomorrow morning. Very nervous, but excited, realizing this is my unseen seen thing coming through. Well, yeah, and the thing around being seen is about being acknowledged. And the big question just for you is, are you allowing yourself to see who you really are? And that's an unfolding piece, so we can say this seen and unseen is about the external seeing us, but ultimately it's about you seeing yourself, coming into that connection with yourself. Nancy, I agree. Yes. We're on the same page. I think everybody here is on the same page, right? Yeah. Yes. So let's just come back into, I was going to say take a deep breath in, but no, just come back into that awareness of breathing. My daughter's having anxiety. She can't find a job. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of people are in that place, aren't there? And so the trick with things like that is that we have made what we are looking for to be the definition of ourselves. If that makes sense. Let's see if I can put it in different words. What we strive to find, anything that you're looking for. It goes back to the money thing. Also, money, anything that you're looking for externally to yourself is that looking for that something to define us, because we have a hard time finding ourselves, our own definition. And we have learned that you get defined, who you are is defined by what you do, how you act. Now, those are all just experiences that we're going through. And if we make what we are doing, like right now I'm talking to you, if I make this the definition of who I am, I'm not going to be doing what I need to be doing here. You didn't have a lack of identity in childhood. You just had an identity that you are trying to figure out. And yeah, with abuse and narcissism, you have an identity relative to that situation. So lack of identity, there's no lack of identity. It's lack of identity as we have defined identity, or have we've heard the definition of identity to be. But there's an identity there. That's the problem. And so it's, what is that identity about? How is it, what is the actual definition of the identity that you're calling the lack of identity? Catch 22. Yes, does make sense. Good. So coming back into just smelling that flower, smelling that fragrance of the timeless and infinite. It's nice to get into that, going deeper in some of these, pieces, and then taking that stillness of mind, putting that aside, stillness of being, letting ourselves smell the fragrance of the infinite. Because in that moment of taking that time, I really like this piece where piece has been coming up today, of just that fragrance of the infinite, and that fragrance of taking in that fragrance, shifting out of that, just what am I doing here? What's going on here? And this anxiety and stuff, coming into that focus of the infinite and the finite coming together, coming into that stillness. And letting all of that unwind, giving that space to just let go, just unwind, release itself. Coming into that stillness of the infinite. So the finite coming into that connection with the infinite. Again, that line. But next time you take a piece of paper, draw a line on it. Remember what we've been working on here, what we've been talking about, what we've been experiencing here. And allowing that space, this is where we let go. So I'm going to throw another piece out for this identity here. You don't want to be seen, because being seen is connected to being to narcissism, and connected to the person who basically the abuse went through, because narcissism is about, look at me. And it's more complex than that, because it's really about pulling the energy from other people to support oneself. And that's how you understood when you were a child, that this is what it means to be seen. You know how hurtful that is. He said, I don't want to be seen. So boom, you're going like this with yourself. Just connecting to nature, yes. The smell of the ocean, yes. Or the dewy smell of a stream, they all connect to infinite. Absolutely, yeah. So Nancy bringing us some very nice visuals here. So let's bring this to an end soon here, of just allowing ourselves to, again, come back into taking in that fragrance of that meeting. I just realized that a month ago. Well, obviously not fully, because it's still coming up for you. So what you did is you opened up the door to that realization, but there's a lot more that's unwinding, because if you had come into the full realization of it, you would have shifted out of it. So just to understand that. And so that starts to tie into that piece of not wanting to be seen, and so you start to put this image of looking better than how you feel. Coming back into that fragrance. So right there, you're going into identity that you don't want to be going into. I can change how I'm seen to something positive and change the real world examples that I have of success wealth. Okay, well, take just that first part of that sentence. I want everybody to pay attention to this because we've all been there. We all do this. I can change how I'm seen to something positive. Scratch that out because that's about how you're being seen. It's putting on an identity. It's putting on a mask. You can change to being seen for who you are, period. I realized then that my only example of rich people were negative. Well, everybody's got negative connotations about rich people, about poor people, about people in the middle class, about people, period. But and it's if you don't have money, then you're going to have those negative connotations about people who are rich. If you're rich, you a lot of money, you're probably going to have those negative connotations about people who don't have money. Boom. Ha. Yeah. So again, I want to come back to the piece. This is really important to understand. You change. I can change and to being seen for who I am, period. Everything else is an image. Everything else is a false identity. That's where you want to go. Because as long as you have that thing of I'm seen as something positive, you're getting right back to that not being seen or being seen in a way that you're not going to get hit by that narcissistic abuse. So you're still not being seen. And it doesn't matter if it's about positive or negative. Ooh, I finite. Yes, I noticed that. I noticed that spelling. Yes, to the I finite. But that's smell the stream. They all connect to the I finite. They do. They do that too. They all connect to the infinite, and they all connect to the I finite. Both of them. Yeah. All right. Good insights, everybody. Good input. All right. Let's take again. Come back into that fragrance of the infinite. Coming into that stillness. And also what's coming through in this space is just that love and appreciation for how you each and all have contributed right here, right now, even if you're just listening. And that, good job, everybody. Asta, I don't know if I said hi, but I'm saying hi now. Can't remember. So I'm noticing, I'm just checking to see if I need to say anything else for anybody. So with your daughter, I don't know if she's open to coming, but bring her in. Sometimes I don't do this very often for because it's about focusing ourselves. But occasionally we have done stuff where we bring people in so that are not present. But yeah, it's kind of tough anyways for for all of that, because we're really pushed, as everything falls apart, we're really pushed into that connection to self even more, because there's nothing else to hold on to, right? So, but it's hard. It's hard for her. I can appreciate that. Yeah, it's hard for any of us, no matter how old or how young, what you're doing that. But just that piece of connecting to ourselves, there's a lot that you have to go through to just, and you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Thank you so much. I needed this today. Yeah, good. I'm glad you joined. So very, very nice to have everybody join in and taking that time, giving ourselves that space to be, so that we can come into our own being even more. So we'll be back next week. The week after, I think I'm going to be taking off because I will be going out of town for the day, and just to give me that flexibility of driving back home. But next week, thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you. Oh, Glenna, you're here. Hello, Glenna. Thank you for the session. Good to see you, Glenna. So next Wednesday, same time, same place. We'll see you there, or in the ethers, wherever we meet up. We're always connected in the ethers, and if not, here, whenever you pop back in, it's always nice to have everybody show up here and there, or occasionally, or all the time. And welcome, Asta. So, all right, well, have a good rest of your week, and the adventure continues. Like, go smell those flowers. go smell those flowers, and draw that line on a piece of paper, and just feel into that. As you see that line, feel into that connection, that joining up that happens on that line. And Joni, yes. Okay, Joni, hey, I think you're just joining. Joni is joining in now. So this has been a real nice session, and you might want to go back, because we're ending now. And it was a very, very beautiful session, everybody. So thank you all for stopping in and being a part of this, and have a good rest of your week. Oh, and just remembering, flash my QR code. If you feel like making a little donation my direction, that's great. For Instagram, if you want to do a donation, you can follow the link in the bio, and then you'll see that little link in the bio to take you there. That's appreciated. So anyways, good rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. I'm here, and all the best to everybody in that smelling the fragrance of the infinite. Here we go.